Hi, this is Dr. Anita with another Diamond Moment. As I've said and introduced this podcast for a couple of years now, diamonds, the diamonds of our lives, are produced through time, heat, and pressure. The cut, the clarity and size of that diamond, that stone, will determine its use. And the use of the stone adds to its value. As you know, life's diamonds are produced, they're processed and valued the same way. We've been utilizing this podcast, to unlock and process the challenges of our lives, to ascribe value to them, to determine their worth, and then to put these valuable lessons to work so that we can fulfill that which we have been positioned on this earth at this time to do. I want to dig a little deeper into this very familiar opening and really break it down. The difficulties, the challenges, the pain, the tears that we shed, that we have shed as we've moved through this life, sometimes experiencing tremendous loss, sometimes being devastated to the point that we didn't think we'd be able to recover from, and yet we did. Those opportunities have been deposited in our inner selves, not to cause us to grieve and hurt and be in pain forever, but to go back and reevaluate those very experiences so that we can bring value out of many of the things that have caused us pain. When we talk about the fact that the diamonds are produced through time, it takes a while. You may not be able to just run through that healing process and come out in a day or two and be okay. It takes time. Sometimes it takes years. Sometimes it takes decades in order to process what you've experienced. And during that time, when we refer to heat, you're under enormous, it's not a comfortable place to be. Not even considering how much pressure can be positioned in our lives. If you're having a financial difficulty and you don't see an easy out to that difficulty, it gets very uncomfortable. Things are very uncertain. And that discomfort and uncertainty pushes you into a place of intense pressure. But it is the desire to get and extricate yourself from that pressure that allows you to be open to receive an answer. This is where we get to the point of developing that raw diamond, that raw, and I mean in the most base sense, that raw, ripping experience that you've gone through. You take those experiences and you begin to chisel and cut away at it. Which part of this was really, really difficult? And what part, because of the way you perceived the situation, was not quite as bad as what you thought? This element of time allows you to get a little distance between you and the experience so that you can objectively evaluate that thing. The clarity, being able to bring clarity into that situation, to see it clearly, to see it for what it was. Was it actually designed? Was it positioned in your life to destroy you? Or was it positioned in your life to bring about a different level of perspective? Maybe you never should have been around those people. Maybe the trial, the challenge, the difficulty that you experienced was simply because you were not discerning who was around you, who was speaking into your life. Why you experienced what you did may have been because you were unaware of your surroundings. So now we begin to get some clarity to what these challenges, what these experiences have brought into our lives. And sometimes they are and bring about an enormous change. Therefore, we get the clarity, and the size of this challenging experience determines its use. It determines how we're able to reincorporate this information into our lives. And now we can walk away with a stone, a diamond that has value to it. We have processed it. We've cut away the portions of it that are unneeded. We're able to see the clarity of that situation. And depending on what we've learned, what we can take away from it, it can be something of very great value. We have determined that this would be the place that we would process these diamonds of our lives. If you haven't done so, I do invite you to invest in a Diamond Journey Journal. Becoming is a process. A process has stages. You can get it on Amazon. And again, it is by yours truly, Dr. Anita McLaughlin. In there, I have included some affirmations. And the affirmation that I want to read today is on change. Everything must change. Change is a part of life. Change is the outcome of the seasons of life and growth patterns moving forward. My perception determines the outcome of my development. I see the positivity of change, and I'm excited for new experiences in my life. I will grow through these experiences which cause me to change. As I grow and change, I'm better and stronger than ever. And I want you to take a moment, and just think about that everything changes. And the changes that take place are to make me better, not bitter. In the meditation portion of the journal, I want to read this. Sometimes the best person to motivate you is you. Dig down, remove ego, seek what is authentic to you, believe, receive, then give. Sometimes the best person to help you is you. But you have to remove that ego. And we have to remove that portion of us that seeks to protect us into blindness so that we're never able to cut that raw stone, to get the clarity out of it, and to position it into a place of value within our lives. I'm going to be, for a little while, going over this whole concept of waiting for the world to change. And I am completely and fully inviting you to become that change. Again, going back to the very first episodes of this podcast, we've talked about, and I've shared with you my life's journey. And it has been many years to come to this place. Hopefully, as we grow older, as we grow wiser, as we grow more mature, we're able to take less time because we've learned to value the experiences of others that would speed up that process of clarity and value. That we wouldn't have to go back and run into a wall full force with our heads to find out what somebody told us in the first place the wall is hard, you're going to hurt yourself. There are people who have to take that running bump in order to be able to say, you know what? I see what you're saying now. That wall is hard. I don't think I want to do that again. Well, understand that amount of time that it took you to go back and run into the wall and then have to recover from it, you wasted, because you could have listened and learned, but instead you had to find out on your own. There are some issues in life that you really do have to learn about on your own. But some of the things that we experience are unnecessary. And we have to be able to remove our ego and say, you know what? That was not a smart thing that I did. But now that I know, I can do something different. In that way, we're able to learn from the experiences that we've had. And we don't have to stay stuck on stupid. We can move forward in our lives. We talked about how other people's influences can be a hindrance because we're trying so hard to please someone. We have ceased being beneficial to our own selves. We see this with peer pressure. We see it with our youth sometimes that are trying so hard to fit in that they have completely negated the uniqueness of who they are. We see sometimes them move to the place of despair and even attempting or completing acts that harm themselves because they've yet to understand how unique and wonderful they are. Sometimes that basis for judgment has come from the society at large. Sometimes it's come from the belief systems that we have based our lives off of that are antiquated and need to be replaced. We're seeing in real time some of those authority institutions that we have based our lives on. They're walking back in their steps because what they taught was wrong all along, and they knew it. We've talked about the fact that even scripture, which we deem to have truth, everything is not true that we see positioned there, but that it holds aspects of truth. We see that even that was manipulated. A few episodes back, I gave you the names of Mauro, Biglino, and Paul Wallis, so that you could go back and look at the studies that they did on the Elohim, that you could go back and find out that the quote unquote redemptive names of God were not that. They were not redemptive names of God. They were actually the names of powerful beings from our ancient past. When we go back and we're able to utilize the intuition that some belief systems have condemned and not listen to what's taking place within us, but listen to what's taking place on the outside of us, we've run into issues and problems and questions where we read these facets and it doesn't make sense. What do you mean? That doesn't make sense. How could a loving God do this? Well, once again, we were always talking about two different things. What we saw written and what our spiritual inner being was showing us was two different things. And unless we questioned it deep enough to go back and research on our own, we would not know what that conflict was and why it was there. I want to add a little bit more for you to go back and to research, and that is on the Essenes. because we find that the Essenes, which were another Jewish sect at the time of the Pharisees and the Sadducees, were purposefully written out of history. They were written out of the current canon of Scripture that many in the Christian belief utilize as truth. They were written out. And when you research it deeply, you find out that part of what they wrote out was the exact beliefs and teachings of Jesus. Why would they do that? Because they determined that Jesus was going to represent what they wanted him to represent and not who and what he actually was. When we realize the fact that Jesus and the teachings of the Essene predated Jesus, that they were in use and had been written down 130 years before Jesus, we get that understanding that what Jesus taught was exactly the message of the Essenes, the group that he grew up in. And when that is a threatening point for who he was, then you've missed the point. Because if Jesus was the Son of God, and he said, you are now a son of God because of your belief. When we understand that Jesus connects us into an understanding of how we are connected to the Creator, to Source, and that the ultimate character of that source is not condemnation and it's not fear, it's love. And when we go back and read what Jesus actually believed in the Essene scripture, it quote unquote brings out the beloved, let us love one another, because love is of God, and everyone who loves is born of God and knows God. And he who loves not knows not God, because God is love. It is actually written in the Essene scripture. So when we begin to understand that being able to take in additional information does not lessen who Jesus is, but it actually explains the conflict between the Sadducees, the Pharisees, and Jesus, who it appears was an Essene. When you go back and you begin to evaluate these scriptures and to find out what was written out, what was actually criminalized, where laws were passed that the sect that Jesus actually came from would not be brought out. And then that discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls, which were hidden by the Essenes in order to preserve their history, because their history was being removed, just like some of the states in the United States are seeking to do about the culture of the African American people, because that narrative doesn't suit their motive. So when we go back and look and realize that for many people, what you learned about spiritual things started from the knowledge that you have of Jesus, then you'll understand that Jesus is not being threatened to receive the truth. To have truth come forward should not be threatening. To be able to speak what is true should not threaten your belief system, because it should already be established. But to be able to take in real truth in order to understand where things got twisted, where it went awry, so that you can get back on the path. In previous episodes, we've talked about the fact that when you go back, when you look at what took place in my life, how did I get here? How did I get on this road? when you look back, you're able to and actually walk back in your steps, retrace your steps backwards. You'll be able to see where the road deviated, where it took a different turn, and where maybe you went left when you should have gone right, or vice versa. Maybe you went right when you should have stayed left. Maybe you were on the right path all along, but you wanted to fit in. And so you released your true and authentic self and took on the persona of someone or something else. And that was never what was intended for you. So from that point forward, you've been on a path that wasn't your path. You've been moving in a direction that wasn't the direction that was your direction to go. And until you go back and walk back in your steps where you're able to find out where you went wrong, you can't correct that. Once you do, once you get to the place and say, you know what, I don't even know what I was thinking. I was much happier then. I had joy then. I wasn't mean. I wasn't judgmental. I wasn't looking and picking out all the flaws in someone else. I was actually able to accept and receive people. And that's who I feel better being. That's what's inside of me to be. And that is where I want to go. When you're able to walk backwards, to be able to see who you actually are, who you innately are, then you're able to correct where you are. But you do it in a way that you're able to utilize the experiences that you've had, these raw and challenging experiences that you had. You're able to cut them. You're able to be able to cut away what was unnecessary and unneeded. See the clarity in that, and then assess the value of what you've learned. You're able to grow from what you've learned. You're able to become what you were intended to be and enter back in on your path. As I've said many times before, if you cannot die someone else's death, you have no right to try to live their life. And whoever it is that they were created to be, I personally do not believe that a God of love who gave you free will send you to hell for utilizing that free will. I think that was a part of the lie that we were given in order to control. If I can control you in your beliefs, I can make you do what I need you to do for my purpose and for my benefit, and feed you a story that one day you'll die and go to heaven and everything will be okay. Well, you know, I believe that, as they've said, on earth as it is in heaven, that it should reflect the life that we live in with that ultimate spiritual place of elevation that we desire to go. And so we're supposed to make this earth, this place, this time, look like where others have attributed heaven to be. I want us to really dig down deeply into what we believe, because until we're able to clarify exactly what we believe, we're unable to be effective here in this world. We're unable to help someone else. We're unable to answer the challenges of our time. If you are an older listener, you have had the time and had probably enough pressure to have some real gems, some real diamonds that you could share. But are you so judgmental that nobody wants to hear what you have to say? Are you so stuck in your way that unless someone comes to you in your way, you can't receive them? Or are you so antiquated in your thought until everything is a challenge to you, and so therefore you just recede back to the back in the corner in the dark? I want to challenge you, if you are a younger person, to get with mom, get with grandma, get with auntie, and help them to come up to speed. If you see any value in what they share with you of where they've been, utilize those things and expose them, because some of the wisdom that is out there will be lost. When they are no longer here, the wisdom that they carry will be lost unless you help that wisdom to take root, to take hold, and hopefully lessen the school of hard knocks that many go through. We've talked about so many issues during the time that we have been working on the different seasons of this podcast. We've looked at ourselves individually. We've looked at people around us. We've looked at our value systems. We've looked at the outside influences on us. We've looked at, again, our beliefs. And please go back and listen to some of the other episodes. Please go back. I would love for you to go back. They're short. I've intentionally made short episodes so that they would be easy to digest, so that you could get a little bite and then think about that. Come back next week and get another little bite and think about that. But in the time that we've been together, it would be a waste of your time and mine not to begin to use. Again, the value of the diamonds is in how they are used. For us to be able to use the value of our experiences and begin to change the world. If there's something that you feel that you can see that is wrong with our world, as the truth in Scripture says, to whom much is given, much is required. If you can see that, that may be an area for you to change. While you're waiting on the world to change, you can facilitate that change. And we're going to be moving forward, looking at how we can change the world. We're going to utilize our Diamond Journey Journal by going into it, determining what we want to do for a week's task, whether it be reading, whether it be studying, whether it be researching, and write down the 5 tasks for that week. We're going to choose a meditation or an affirmation. We're going to select something maybe that we want to read, even if it is just an online article or something that we've researched. We're going to think about and reflect on that in few words, because sometimes you're able to condense your learning when you remove some of the words and get down to that core essence of what you've learned. We're going to look at it in terms of, now that I've cut away some of that excess, now that I have some clarity, who am I now and how have I changed? And then we're going to take that change, that understanding into the next week. And we're going to look at the tasks that we want to accomplish for that week. Maybe this week, I really do want to go back and look at the Elohim series of Mauro, Biglino, and Paul Wallis on the 5th Kind on YouTube. Maybe I really do want to go back and look at some of those discoveries that they've made about mistranslations in the canon of Scripture. Maybe my task or my desire is to do something about that business that I want to open. Maybe I'll go back and read some books. One that I can recommend for you is by Jaimel D. Hill, Plan Your Work and Work Your Plan. Go back and read what you need to do in order to launch a project in your life. Maybe you want to understand more about the far ancient history of our world. Maybe you'd like to find out something about Billy Carson, about the Emerald Tablets. Maybe history is not where you are. Maybe you want to find out how to move into a more mature place as a woman. And maybe it would be great for you to visit a YouTuber named Fumi Disalovode and see about how you're able to transition into a more mature woman from the woman that you were before. How to utilize the wisdom that you learned with common sense, because as I said many times before, common sense is not common. Maybe it's going back and looking at some changing how you look on the outside to reflect how you feel on the inside. Maybe it's beginning to eat healthy in order to prolong your life. Maybe it is taking into your own hands the fact that nobody can change your diet but you. Maybe it's really looking at and meditating on the fact that if you're the best person to motivate you is you. Maybe thinking about and meditating on digging down, removing your ego. What does that take to get your ego out of the way? It takes being able to say, you know what, I was wrong. I had a wrong perspective. And now that I'm making some corrections to that perspective, I'm seeing my authentic self. And once I get to that, to receive, to believe, now I have something that I can give to someone else. So it's being able to take those type of tasks and bring them down into workable steps in order to change your life. That's what we do in a Diamond Journey Journal. In the beginning, I bring out for some who are unfamiliar with holistic terms. I bring those out because you know what? We're not where we once were, and the world is not going backwards for you. It's not going backwards. So being able to understand what's being spoken of, to understand what you taught to be afraid of because the religious system did not want you to find out that you don't have a monopoly on wisdom, that wisdom probably preceded wherever it is that your wisdom foundational culture has, that it went back hundreds of thousands of years into our far ancient past, that we have been taught and has been removed from culture so that those who wanted to control you could do just that. It's time to wake up. It's time to challenge the authority that says that my neighbor who has the exact makeup of myself is different from me because of the pigmentation of their skin. It's a lie. It's always been a lie. It will always be a lie. And it's time to challenge that. If you are paying attention to anything in the United States, if you're not here, then you know that we're in that season that justice is being served. And for one, I am glad. It is disheartening for a lie to sit up as truth. And for all those who have lied intentionally in order to maintain power and control. the lies are being brought out. If you are listening to me from Dublin or from Liverpool or from Cairo or some of the South Africa, from Kenya, from Ghana, from some of the countries around the world, Germany, that I'm so thankful that you're following. I encourage you to make your country, your city, your home a better place as you move and grow and become who you were designed to become. One of the key portions of this podcast is to understand that becoming is a process, and that process has stages. Utilize your Diamond Journey Journal, Becoming is a Process, in order to orderly think through the process of change and watch your life blossom. Continue listening to this podcast. I'm going to be continuing to move forward. We're not going to rehash everything every week, but we are going to go back at times and dig down deeper, process a little bit more. But it's all with the outcome of becoming who we were meant to be. It's all with the outcome of shining light and bringing clarity and form into what and where we've been, and utilizing that as a position of value for moving forward. We are going to continue challenging spiritual foundations to be able to see where we went wrong, what we need to do. I am trusting that you will go back, that you will begin to define terms that were just thrown at you, that you really didn't understand, but you accepted. Google it if you don't know, and then search for the meanings that your inner man, your inner being will highlight to you as truth. If you have not done so, I'm inviting you to visit my website, www.DrAnitaMc.com. Connect with me. Leave me a message. In the next few weeks, I'm going to go back on YouTube. What I had not expressed is that I have been overcoming an enormous loss in my life. I lost one branch of my family. My sister-in-law, who died in January a year ago now. My nephew and my brother. My brother stopped living after his wife, even though they were not together, but after his wife and his son died, my brother died. So I have been processing that raw emotion of grief and pain. And I'm about ready now to move forward again on YouTube. And we're going to be discussing a number of topics. So I'm inviting you, if you had not done so, to join me on YouTube, which it has the same name, A Diamond Moment with Dr. Anita. Join me there. For those that are exploring and learning about NoomVibe, I am just about at the point to be able to start putting out some new content from all those who support me there. And I thank you. I am honored and I am humbled by the way that you have received me on NoomVibe. And I am going to be putting out some new content for you there, as well as those that are on FanBase. I've been attempting to find new ways to bring out the information that I've been learning and seeing the appropriate platform from which to speak in these various areas. And so, along with moving through the grief and mourning period of the loss of my family, I am about at the place where I'm developing through my Diamond Journey Journal how to move forward in those areas. So stay with me, stick with me. I appreciate your being here and your taking the time out of your life to spend with me. Remember that becoming really is a process. That process does have stages, and that we can utilize those things that have been difficult for us through the time, through that heat and through that pressure. They're being developed as we cut away the excess, as we find the clarity and realize what a great and enormous wealth of information that we have to be utilized through the diamonds of our lives. Thank you so much for being with me. And please come back.